Hello and welcome to the Yeerky Boys. May the Kandrona shine and strengthen you. My name is Will.
My name is Jonathan.
And we are
the Yeerky Boys.
I came in a little early that time.
I came in too late on my name, and then I tried to course correct for the second part.
I think it worked.
I think it did too.
Yeah, I'm glad we're back to talking about this every ep. We had a good long run of never mentioning it.
Yeah, and I think the people were wondering when we were going to talk about it, so we're finally giving them what they want.
Yeah, and that's what this episode is all about, is this specific intro and how well we're doing.
Yeah, let's run through it a few more times and see how we do.
Yeah, so this is our second recap episode. We're doing this very unique thing, right, where we've split it up in all of Animorphs up into seasons, you see. And so every Chronicles book, we're going to take a pause to talk about the so-called season that's led up to this particular episode. So the first one we did through the Andalite Chronicles, and this one's going to start at book 14 and go through book 22 and the Hork-Bajir Chronicles. With Megamorphs too as well.
Too.
Yes. Yes.
And you were pointing out this is a shorter season than the other seasons.
Yes. Yeah, it is unfortunate, but it doesn't really make sense to break them up that differently. I would love to include book 23 in the season to get things nice and even, but first of all, it actively references things from the Hork-Bajir Chronicles, so it has to come chronologically later. We wouldn't end after Chronicles. And secondly, it's the first ghost-written book, so it really should not cap off a season. It should start one. So this is just how they're going to be split up. People are just going to deal with it. That's good, because it means we will have a very short episode and be done on time. We won't drag it out. Things won't go too long, because there's fewer books to discuss.
Right. Now, it is fewer books, but it is only 3 fewer episodes than our first season, because the first season we only spent 1 episode on Megamorphs. And I don't know how else it shook out, but it just was 3 fewer. And, well, unless you're counting the introduction. I didn't count the intro. That was also part of it.
That doesn't count. That one's not real.
Yeah, it's not real. No one's ever listened to it. So,
yeah.
So yeah, it's a little bit different, but we're going to make it work. And it doesn't feel shorter. I'll say that. It doesn't feel like, oh, we just did season 1. I feel like it's been a long time.
Yeah, I do as well.
But so for when season 3 comes around, the retrospective, that's going to feel like it's been forever, I think. Because that's a long season. Yeah. Season 3, yes. I think, is our longest season.
Yes. We'll have
we
some
also
fun.
Might. I thought we were going to maybe play with not ending after a Chronicles for one of these seasons, but that's in the future when we'll.
Yeah, that's long in the future. We'll have decisions to be made around there, but.
So because I know what people really like about this podcast is the logistical discussions, we're going to have some of those. We are going to get into our overall thoughts on season 2 as a whole, just like we did in our first season recap. But we want to kind of clear the air and make it known that the next few weeks of Yeerky Boys are going to be a little different from what you're used to. And that is because both of us are going on a trip. I'm going to say it. We're going to be away in the land of the rising sun, Japan.
Oh, wait, that's the land of the rising sun? I was prepping for Norway.
Oh.
Shit.
That's, yeah.
I'm going to have to talk to the airlines. I got some bad tickets here.
That explains why you kept talking about how excited you are for all the rutabagas.
Right, yeah. You get me.
I think that's Norway culture and Frozen. I think that's what they have.
Right. Yeah, Frozen for sure.
It's a weird thing. We're both going on a trip, which is not something we neither of us usually really travel, and certainly not at the same time to the same place.
And it's not weird that the two of us are going to the same place together. It's a totally normal thing for two buds to do.
It's a very, very normal heterosexual friend trip.
Just two straight guys on a trip together to a foreign country.
There will be other people there too.
Yeah,
but we're not
chaperones.
The point is, it is neither feasible nor desirable for either of us to be reading books and recording while we're overseas. So we are front-loading and pre-recording episodes right now that will be going up while we are away. However, we did not think it would be good for us or for the listeners to force ourselves to read so many books in advance and record them back to back, because it would just be, I don't know, it would be overloaded. We would lose track of what we were doing. I think it would be confusing and overwhelming for us.
And at the same time, we also don't want you guys to miss out on your regular Yeerky Boys content.
Of course not. That's the last thing anyone wants.
Right.
So
we've got kind of a plan.
Yeah, the good news is you're not going to miss. There will be an episode coming out every single week. The bad news is we're not actually going to be covering another Animorphs book for another, let's see, about a month. About a month from now. A little more is when the next book 23, the actual start of season 3 will come out.
We're very sorry.
So sorry if you're reading along or this disrupts you or something. I don't know. But what we are going to have in the meantime is some filler episodes, you might call them. After this week, the next 2 episodes are going to be about the Anabase, which maybe you can briefly say what that is. 'Cause I don't really know.
Yeah, so all right, so what I'm going to be going over here with John.
Briefly.
I can't do that.
We will give a full detailed analysis and rundown in the episodes, but just give him a tease of what that's going to entail.
Basically, there were some online Q&A functions with K.A. Applegate. Some of them were more direct. Some of them were just send in your emails and she will answer them and we will post them on the site periodically every month. So what we have is well over 100 questions just chronologically up to this point so far, even more if we take non-spoiler questions from post Hork-Bajir Chronicles release date. And we're going to get a lot of insight into what was K.A. Applegate thinking at the time she wrote these? What were the fans, the kids, interested in? And we're just going to see some of those interactions. We'll have a lot to talk about there. It's also possible we might get some of that Reddit AMA with Michael Grant in there as well. I think it should be fun. We'll be able to pull some neat little insights out of that.
Yeah, so look forward to that episode. That's not this episode, but that's next week and the following week.
Yes.
And then after that, we are going to have 2 episodes where we are going to delve into the world of Animorphs fan fiction.
Yes.
And
I'm kind of letting you take the lead on that one. But.
Yes, the particulars, we will wait and see how that turns out. But we're going to be kind of reading through Animorphs fan fictions and talking about them on the show. And so, and I think probably going forward in future seasons, we're going to be bringing these ideas back. But we, at the end of a season, for instance, but we probably wouldn't do 2 in a row of each. We are kind of, again, doing some of this to fill out our schedule so that we have episodes going out.
Yeah.
But anyway, it should be fun. But they should be fun to go through. So look forward to that. Don't worry about book 23 for a while.
Yeah, I know it sounds kind of bad, but trust me, you're going to enjoy it because you love us so much.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe people will either love it or our numbers will plummet.
Yeah. Oh man. We might cut our viewership in half, lose a whole 10 viewers. Listenership. No. I don't know what the word is.
Yeah, they are listeners. We'll table that for now. But yes. Okay. So anyway, that's just our little housekeeping that we wanted to do. So just prepare for that. Next order of business. Well, so we're going to get into everything talking about season 2. I wanted to share a little story from my life that relates to.
Yeah, you have a little
Animorphs.
Anecdote on the schedule here. I don't know what it is.
I wrote anecdote. Anecdote might be too strong a word, to be honest with you. I just wanted to say an experience I had because it ties into the whole thing, but it happened to me a few weeks. Nothing happened to me. Oh God, why am I even setting this up? It's such a such a nothing. But I was traveling a few weeks ago. I was visiting family, and I was happened to be in a bookstore, not a Barnes and Noble, because is that probably the only real chain bookstore that still exists.
It might well be, yes.
Like maybe at least national. I think it is probably.
Mm-hmm.
And this was another bookstore, mom and pop, or maybe there's a few of them out in the Midwest. And I don't. I sometimes I go into a Barnes and Noble, but usually I'm not out in the bookstores these days. I'm on my Kindle or I'm on Amazon. What can I say? The future. It's dystopian, isn't it, folks? Anyway,
He's right.
I was in there and I was browsing, and I was like, I want to look at the kids section. I want to find out, are there Animorphs books
Mm-hmm.
in the bookstore?
Yeah.
I don't know when the last time you were in a bookstore, let alone the kids section of a bookstore.
I was actually in a bookstore less than a week ago. I went to the local Barnes and Noble, and I considered walking into like the young adult or kids section to like see if any of like maybe Michael Grant's Gone series or maybe some of the old Everworld or Animorphs were there, but there were kids there, and I did not feel comfortable walking in there.
No, it's fine. You just say I'm doing it for a podcast. It's not that weird to go into a bookstore. We're acting like it's a very weird thing. It's not like that weird.
Yeah,
But
no, I
anyway.
mean, yeah, it is not. That's why I've been there recently. So,
So I will report on my findings. There were no Animorphs books,
mhm.
which I think is interesting. That I don't know how big a phenomenon you have to be. I think the problem with Animorphs is that there are too many of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think like Golden Compass or something you're going to see. Like obviously Harry Potter you're going to see, but that's sort of a different thing. But I think if there were 3 Animorphs books, I bet a lot of stores would still carry them. I think there just are so many that they don't know what to do with them. However, I will say on that note, kind of contrasting that, they do still have Goosebumps books. Those are still around a lot, and some newer ones, like they're still. I don't know if they're doing them every month, but there's like some coming out. I saw some. There's like a new Slappy the Dummy book. I don't know. I say new. Maybe it's like 5 years old or 10 years old, but it's not from when we were kids. And there was still like a shelf, or at least half a shelf of Goosebumps books. So that's still going. So that's interesting.
You say so. This was not a chain bookstore.
No.
Are they? Do
it might be a chain, but like there might be 3 or 4 of them, but it's not like a.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, because part of it is also whether these books are still in print, right? Can they buy these directly from the publisher to get them on the shelves, or are they relying on like a used book aftermarket? Because if they're, I don't think that Scholastic or whoever is publishing Animorphs anymore. Like they have the rights, but the books aren't being produced or anything like that. Whereas obviously, I assume they're still printing Harry Potter, right? It seems crazy to think that they wouldn't be. So I wouldn't expect to see Animorphs probably in a Barnes and Noble, although maybe some of the newer ones are like the graphic novels. But I might expect to have seen them in a used bookstore, although obviously not a complete run. I don't know though. I'm that's what I'm curious about this particular store.
Yeah, this was definitely new books. It wasn't used books. It's a fairly like modern looking. It's a smaller bookstore, but it's a well maintained like new bookstore. They've got they've got like a D&D section. They've got like some toys and trinkets like they all have to have now.
Yeah.
I just checked on Amazon out of curiosity, and all the recommendations are either the comic books or there's audio books. It's the big one that's pushing to me. They do have I Kindle, and I guess there are paperback, but I'm pretty sure they aren't. I don't know. It does say paperback, and it doesn't look like it's used or anything. It looks like maybe this is the revised editions they still have or something. Because
Yeah, I mean, I was able to find on Amazon because there were a couple of books that I didn't know where my copy had gone to, and I had to replace. But they were all from like third-party sellers on
There's
Amazon.
also something called an Animorphs Retro Tin Set,
Mm,
which just has the first 6 books with their original covers in an exclusive collectible retro tin.
I
Kind of
don't know about
cool.
all
Only
that.
6 books
Yeah,
is kind of
6 is a
lame.
little.
It should have been the first season. They should have consulted us. Yeah, it's looking like I think they might be selling still the there's like a handful you can get. But yeah, some of them are used, some of them maybe they're revised editions. But yeah, it's not certainly doesn't look like it's in wide circulation, certainly not the whole series. So I wonder why that is. I would guess that Goosebumps is easier to sell because they're all standalone. Nobody cares about reading the whole series, but
Yeah.
it does seem like what I would think the obvious thing to do would be to start selling collections. You do like
Yeah.
the way they do with graphic novels. You have like books 1 through 10, like in a big hardcover set, and you can keep like 6 or 7 of those in circulation alongside the Chronicles books. That would be kind of cool. I would probably buy those
Hell
if that
yeah.
was like if those were a nice set.
I would get that shit. Oh my god, that sounds great.
Whereas I don't like, even if they were in circulation, I don't have a desire person to like have 54 of these books on my shelf. That's like a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I like my 54 books on my shelf, but like also they're all
Yeah,
from when I was a kid, so
right. If you had to start fresh, it'd
it'd be
be
it'd be a
tricky.
bit much, yeah.
But anyway, however, I did then look at, by the way, you said Michael Grant has books. I don't know if I knew that. I don't know if I knew he had his own books.
Yeah, every time I look at him, I see the Gone series come up, and I don't know anything about it, but it gets mentioned a lot, so I can only presume that it is new-ish.
Yeah. So then I just went looking for K. Applegate books.
Mm-hmm.
And they did have not Everworld. They had another one that starts with an E. Do you know, Endling or something like that?
Yeah, I don't know. After Everworld and Remnants, I don't know anymore from personal experience.
Catherine Applegate books. Amazon recommended me. Endling. There's the 3-book series called Endling. And they also had all the one and only Ivan, and there's the newest one, the one and only Ruby. There's 3 of them. One's about a gorilla, one's about a elephant, one's about a something else. and I think they also had Otter, another one of hers. It's about an otter, but it's called Otter.
Because it's a weird one.
So they had a few of those, and I actually flipped through the one of the Ivan or the Ruby. I think it was Ivan, and maybe I flipped through the Ruby book. And I gotta say, I had no idea what these books were. I just was like curious, what is this? And they're sort of written like a series of poems.
Oh, that's cool.
I think they tell a story. I think there is a narrative through line, but each chapter, so to speak, it's like a bunch of 1 or 2 page, or even some of them are only like a few lines, kind of poem like little anecdotes from the point of view of these animals. And they, I guess, shouldn't be too surprising. They deal a lot with the issues of like poaching and conservation. And I only looked at a few, but like the couple that I looked at were, I thought, pretty poignant. And it seemed, I was like, I think I would actually like to read these books. They seem kind of intriguing.
Yeah, well, you've talked him up. You're making me kind of want to read him. It seems like she's still on the same tack here, right? Where it's like, oh, I want to write some books from the perspective of animals, so we'll have the kids turn into animals, and then all right, we're just gonna keep doing that. That's what she likes. So.
But it seems like, I mean, we have discussed the pros of Animorphs enough, but like picking these up, like the style of them, I thought was much more immediately engaging and seemed better written to me, or at least more, I don't know, it's a little more flowery, I guess might be another way to say it. It's just seemed, like I said, more like a poem, less less obvious, like still geared towards kids, but also seemed like
Mm-hmm.
not as hard of a sell, I guess, as an Animorphs book to an adult would be today.
Mm-hmm. I mean, give it 20 years and allow her to write like one book every 6 months as opposed to 1 month, and yeah, I would expect a market improvement.
Yes, like clearly the circumstances are very different here.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I don't know. That was just my little musings of looking at the world of K. Applegate as it stands today. Like what her kind
Yeah.
of status on bookshelves now is, that, which I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, that's cool. That is neat. Maybe I will look into them at some point and we can become the experts on all things K.A. Applegate.
We're not, again, we are not, that is not going to be the focus of this podcast.
No.
We're not doing
It's
that
never
shit.
going to turn into that, but like, it could happen in the background.
Yeah, the Endling series, I see an anthropomorphic dog who appears to be named, maybe he's named Bix. Or that might be the smaller creature I see. I'm not sure if that's a dog or not.
I'm not even looking at it. I don't.
Yeah, but also I think it's interesting that her newer books she goes by Catherine. So I do think there is some credence to the theory that she went by K.A. so that young boys wouldn't be put off by a woman's name on the cover.
Yeah, there might be. There might be. I wonder if that comes up in some of those questions. Because I don't quite remember all of that content without going back and looking at it. We'll have depths to explore.
What was the other one? The other e-book?
But Everworld?
Everworld. I was gonna see. I was curious if she made that transition. No, she was still K.A. for Everworld.
Yeah, and I assume she was for Remnants as well.
Interesting. So it's like the modern day. She's like, she decided to change her persona.
Well, we'll put that on the list of questions to ask her.
Yeah, we'll put that on the list of questions for when she'll be on the show soon.
So, yes. Yeah, we're in contact right now. We got to deal with this trip first.
That's right. Okay. Anyway, we're gonna, next portion of the show, like these season recap episodes are sometimes a little more loosey goosey. Who knows what's gonna happen?
Whoa! I'll just let you talk the whole time, and that'll be what'll happen.
Yeah, it's a nice change of pace, I think.
Yeah, you're right.
We are gonna have a little. We're gonna have a little sharing right now, and I think we're going to start with a little sharing, and then we're going to have more sharing at the end. We're going to split our sharings up.
Yeah, we have a reasonable amount of sharing.
This first sharing, the sharing.
Da-da-da-da. This
one comes in from Steven. Steven is a friend of the pod and a friend of you. I think you have mentioned him on this show before.
I have mentioned him on this show. I know him in real life.
Yes, and apparently he had something he wanted to say, but you refused to hear it unless he formally submitted it via the email.
I didn't refuse to hear it. I just said I won't engage with it or bring it up on the show in any capacity unless it's in the email.
Which is always healthy to do.
Yes. That's right. You got to write in. You got to give us something to sink our teeth into. You can't just tell me something and let me bring it here secondhand. Engage.
This is kind of like what I have experienced with doing any podcast where I'm gonna discuss a movie and I see the movie with someone who I'm gonna discuss it with on a podcast, and then I'm like, and we just leave the movie theater, and it's like, well, we cannot talk about that. We must. That was movie, yes, and none of our feelings shall be shared because that's content for the show, baby.
Now you said whenever you see a movie on a podcast, you're going to talk. Now, how often does this happen, or was this just on that one thing you did, like back in college?
This does not happen often, but it has happened. It did happen recently with my other podcast, Geeks on Trial.
Okay.
A couple times we talked about Oppenheimer and something else on that show.
Yeah, a little plug.
And back in the day, yes, a couple other shows. This was a thing that I did. Nobody ever listened to those other shows. But it's just an interesting experience that of the hellscape that is creating content. Whether or not anyone listens, it just turns you into a nightmare person to be around.
Yeah, I'm glad you're leading me down this path. You've been doing this forever, and,
Right.
and me, I was always such a good and open friend. Old Will, they'd always say, "Oh, he's always there for you. Always willing to lend a helping ear." And now, I'm just a cackling little gremlin, and it's all your fault.
Correct. So if you'd like to have your email read on the show, email us, theyeerkyboys@gmail.com. We won't be reading it for a few weeks. But Steven writes in, "Hi, guys." Missed opportunity there.
Yeah. Hey, guys.
Hi, guys. I have a theory on Yeerk evolution. And Will told me he wouldn't listen to it unless I sent it into the podcast, so here it is.
Yes. Let's hear it.
When thinking about it, this is also weird because this is like your friend in real life, but I'm the one telling you what he said.
I like it a lot. It's like texting someone you're in the same room as.
It's a convoluted system here. Okay.
I won't, maybe I won't, whatever he says, I'll be like, no, you can't comment. You have to write back to the show if you want.
You should. When thinking about how Yeerks could have evolved and listening to you two talk about, that's weird, I don't remember Bono and the Edge being on the show. Listening to you two talk about symbiosis with the Geds, it made me realize that there's a critical step missing from the Yeerk life cycle that is present in almost every other parasite. I'm getting the sense that Steven is kind of a dweeb.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
We have mind control parasites here on Earth, but all of them engage in mind control as part of their reproductive cycle. If we assume that Yeerk infestation is part of their reproductive process and work backwards... By the way, I am reading this for the first time.
Oh, really? That's exciting.
I did not read this in advance.
Oh, man. I'm very excited.
I don't know where this is going. Again, if we assume that Yeerk infestation is part of their reproductive process and work backwards, then we can make a guess at why infestation evolved. Transportation between Yeerk pools is probably not possible normally. So Yeerks need Ged hosts in order to travel from pool to pool and achieve genetic diversity. However, the Yeerk reproduction process of fission, fission,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I don't know how hard you pronounce those S's.
Whatever.
I do know it's not a word I would ever use.
It's a word that is used in the text.
Is so weird that it led me to another theory. Bonus theory. This one is inspired by a classic sci-fi novel, Grass by Sherry Tepper.
Jesus Christ.
We all know Grass.
Fucking Christ, Stephen.
That story focuses on a metamorphic species with 3 stages. I don't know why he's even saying this, we all know, but I'll go over it just in case.
Yeah, good. I'm glad for the listeners.
A metamorphic species with 3 stages, with only the 3rd stage being able to reproduce. The latter 2 stages are telepathic and engage in weird alien mind sex with humans, which is very Andalite Chronicles. This isn't important to the theory. I just wanted you to know.
We already did, but...
Due to an evolutionary quirk, the 2nd stage becomes able to reproduce, and they begin to outcompete the 3rd stage, creating a branching... What the... Come on. Neotenous species? Neotenous?
Yeah, neotenous, yeah.
Fuck you.
No, I'm following.
This leads me to my theory.
Yes.
If I had read this in advance, I wouldn't be reading it now, so it's a good thing I didn't. This leads me to my theory, 2nd theory, remember, that a similar thing happened to Yeerks. My theory is that originally infesting Geds was a bigger part of the reproduction process, and that they needed Geds to produce new Yeerks, but that fission was a later and more successful evolutionary development. Maybe they originally needed to partially or completely consume the Ged brain, transforming it into new Yeerks, but a Yeerk mutation allowed the Yeerks to engage in this brain consumption on other Yeerks, initiating the fission process. I'm sure if I drilled down in this theory, I could also connect it to the Yeerk cannibalism from the warning somehow, but that's about as far as I've got. This theory isn't really supported by the text. K.A. Applegate definitely believes in evolution, but isn't that interested in its exact mechanics. Geds aren't the only species where a character comments that it's nonsense that they evolved that way. I believe Elfangor makes a similar comment about Mortrons. And you can always just fall back and say Ellimist did it to explain any of the series' weirdness. But I still like the theory and think you would like it too. Keep up the good work.
I don't know about good in that last line, but I don't know. Do you like this theory?
I think I need to, now that I have read that, I need to go through it again to drill down on exactly what this theory is. There's two theories. Maybe you can clarify some of it for me.
Yeah, I mean, like what the immediate thing that I picture, and I do like this idea. You know, I do, because it would only make sense that Yeerks and Geds have co-evolved in some way or another. Like they must have, since they were already infesting Geds by the time Andalites came down to the planet. But what he's describing here is very similar to, so for example, there's a species of worm, and I can't remember the name, that infests insects. And it burrows into the insect and reproduces, and it effectively eats out like the insect's insides while attaching itself to the nervous system. And what it does is it like makes the insect. I'm trying to remember how this works. It like makes the insects extremely attracted to water by like actively tapping into its brain, so that the insects go into the water when the worms are mature, and then they all come out of the body. And if you ever see videos of it, it's horrifying, because like there's about as much worm mass as there is insect mass left, and it's absurd. And there's a number of things that are like this.
I mean, there's, to me, the thing that comes to my mind, the normie one is The Last of Us, which is based on the fungus that takes over ant brains, right?
Yeah. There's that. There's also, I believe, toxoplasmosis with cats has been shown to increase risk-seeking behavior in mice.
No. That's fine for all.
I don't know if it shows that in people or not, but in mice it increases risk-taking behavior in general, with the idea being that the mice now do stupid things and get eaten by the cats.
No. Cats are harmless. I don't have brain parasites. They're fine. Humans are all safe.
But I like. But so where? What are you like? You're saying you need to drill down on this theory again.
There was just a lot of words. I just wanted to try to sum this up. So because there's two theories here. Yeah. So theory one is that Yeerk's infestation is. The end goal of it, at least originally, was to make reproduction easier and more diverse.
Yeah. The first theory, as explained, is that the Geds are vectors that they can use to transfer between pools. So something akin to like fruits getting eaten so that the seeds can be spread, or something like that. Only in this case, you're taking over a Ged so that you can move from pool to pool.
And we talked about that in Hork-Bajir. I was wondering, like, how do Yeerks travel between pools?
Mm-hmm.
So that makes sense to me. I don't know. It's hard to say if the intention of the fiction is that, if that specifically was their original purpose, or if they are just assholes and they just wanted to, or more even less than being assholes, I think they just wanted to be able to move at all. Like,
yeah, and that can kind of work both ways, where the experience of the intelligent being is not necessarily the like driving evolutionary force, where you can say like, oh, why are humans altruistic? Why do we help each other and care about each other? And it's like, well, you see, the group survives better evolutionarily if we help each other.
Mm,
By helping them, we can.
right.
And it's like, but that's not why anybody does it. Nobody's saying, but if I help out that person, then that will strengthen my group. No, they're like, I like other people and I want to be nice to
Love is
them.
actually a chemical reaction in the brain.
Yeah, and like that may be true, but it doesn't change the experience of it. Or so like these can both be true, where the Yeerks feel this way about it, but also there's a driving evolutionary force.
It does make me wonder how long did, I mean, kind of like what you were saying, maybe they must have co-evolved, but was there a time, like how long did Yeerks go before Geds came along? And were Yeerk pools just in random spots and they didn't know there were even other Yeerk pools?
Hmm.
Like what was their culture? How did it form? How did they communicate? What did they do?
Yeah, I mean, if they did co-evolve, then the answer to that question would be that there were no Yeerks or Geds before they co-evolved. There were some other things, and Yeerks as we know them today only exist because they co-evolved with Geds.
I'm reading this theory and I don't really understand what the core of it actually is. Can you sum it up in one sentence for me?
Maybe. All right. So this second theory, uh, is okay. It is that at one point in time, the Yeerks used the Geds to reproduce. Right. They didn't just use them to move from one place to another, but they actively reproduced inside them, potentially even killing the Ged, the way that a lot of these insect parasites do now. Um, but they evolved to what do you call it, to reproduce in this weird three-part thing instead. Like it's a similar mechanism, but they can do it without the Ged and without killing the Ged, and that allows them the benefit of having this Ged host that can move back and forth and do things without having it die, which is in line with a lot of how these sorts of things happen evolutionarily, right? Where it's like it's not like new traits come out of nowhere, right? You've got some previously existing trait and then you modify it slightly, and that modification, if it's good, sticks around.
All right. Sure.
Does that make sense to you, like what I'm saying?
I mean, kind of. I guess I don't know what it. I don't feel like I gain anything from this theory personally. The first one I can see like, all right, yeah, that's kind of interesting to consider. The second one I'm like, maybe they, all right, sure. This is beyond. This is a. I feel a bit like a Hork-Bajir learning about Andalite science theories.
Listen, I don't think it's that hard. I think you just saw the word neotenous and your brain turned off, and you're like, I'm done reading this. No
Yeah,
more.
I
The
guess
end.
so. Well, it's like Yeerks ate brains, and maybe that led to them eating brains. I don't know. Okay,
Yeah, I mean, like there is something there. I think there is something there for certain. That is an interesting theory. Um, and what interests me though throughout all of this is what is that relation on Ged evolution? Because if Geds are so integral to Yeerk evolution, did that are they actually fully co-evolving where Geds are either trying to evolve ways to keep Yeerks out, or Geds are evolving along with Yeerks because it's somehow beneficial to the species? Um, or is it just like a thing that comes in and kills them sometimes, and it's hard to really see beyond just having an immune system? The way that like ringworm and humans co-evolved, where it's like, yeah, I mean, I don't know, we've got a immune system that's designed to kill ringworms because of that kind of thing. I don't know. That is because that is. I see the fascination with like how do Yeerks get mind control? How do Yeerks evolve? But yeah, I
mm.
maybe it's because they always say it in the story. But my focus always does come back to like, why are Geds like that? But maybe it's a more valid question to ask why Yeerks are like that. I don't know.
Well, one thing's for sure, I'm gonna have to get Grass by Sherry Tepper to understand this fully.
Right.
I'll be reading that on our flight.
Maybe when you've partaken in some grass, the theory will make more sense to you, man.
Yeah, I like where you're going with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that reminds me of something else I wanted to say last episode, and I forgot.
Oh, good. We need more to do before we actually discuss the series up to this point.
Well, I just wanted to say, did you see Talk to Me yet? The horror movie?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I won't. It doesn't matter. I won't get into specifics, but I did sort of. I don't want to spoil anything for the listeners. But I did think of. I was like, oh, it'd be an interesting. What if there was a society where Andalites used Yeerks like a drug metaphor, sort of similar to something they do in that movie that like the teen Andalites have a party and they're like, all right, come on, dude, who's next? And they strap an Andalite to a chair and slip a Yeerk in. And they're oh, and then they take the Yeerk out and they're like,
you gotta let the palps touch your brain or whatever, but then you gotta make sure you hold on to the edge. And then, one of them slithered away and now it's in there.
Yeah, this is that's a good Yeerk. That's a good fan fiction right there too.
Yeah.
But it'd have to be in a world where like Andalites won the war or something, or like maybe pre-war Andalite just found some fucking Yeerk. I don't know.
Well, you can do the stories that are basically just a take on a pre-existing story, but with the Animorphs, and we'll let Steven write some evolutionary biology textbook.
Yeah, can you do me a favor? Next time Steven brings a theory like this to you, hear him out.
And then bring it on the show to you, right?
Maybe. Just let him get it out of his system.
You were the one who told me before that it was unacceptable.
Yeah.
I did it because of you.
I'm glad you're thinking this is it's fascinating stuff, and I'm impressed by your ability to say so many things in a fairly short span of an email. And words, big words. I don't know neotenous. That's a new word for me. So.
Yeah. I'll let you look it up.
Great. I'm not gonna. It means new tennis.
Honestly, you could figure it out by doing that.
Just mean a branching neotenous. It feels like you could have just said a branching species.
It's very similar to the word juxtaposition.
Now that's a good word.
I know that's your favorite word.
But I am. Can we just admit that I'm pretty smart, that I'd never seen this word before, but my first guess how to pronounce it was correct?
Yeah. I mean, it's fully possible I'm just saying it wrong. Maybe I'm just stupid.
No, I don't. I think I'm smart.
Okay. All right.
Anyway, thanks for writing in, Steven. We're always happy to accept any listeners' evolution theories, or even theories for, let's say, dumber people. Whatever. Like if you could relate it to, let's say, a Star War, for instance, that would help some of us. But you can always email those to us at Yeerky Boys, at gmail.com. And we'll have some more sharing later in the show. But after that one, I need to take a little brain break.
Yeah, I don't know if you've read that one either. I haven't.
I think I skimmed it. Okay. Some of them I've read, some of them I haven't. We have more things to get into. Okay, but before that, we are now going to just have a general discussion about the season 2 of Animorphs as a whole, which I will let you take charge on.
Sure. I don't know.
I'm letting you take charge. I don't know if I
like taking charge, but all right. So one thing that I noticed, and I wish I could drill down on this. This is part of why I'm bringing this to you.
You know, Steven's used that phrase "drill down," and then I said it too, and now you said it. He's put this in our heads.
Oh no! Like a Yeerk.
Fucking Yeerk.
Christ! All right, so yeah.
Wait, we like Yeerks. We like Yeerks. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, right. So one thing that when we moved from the Andalite Chronicles to this season, I remarked on it, is that it felt like there was a different feel to it, like something about season 2, and I think it's in the prose, but I can't pin down exactly what it is, feels different from a book in season 1. It felt more like, yes, these were the books that I started reading. It just feels the way that they feel. Whereas when I read season 1, it's like these feel like older books, in some sense. Um, and part of that might have just been that we move into this joke book immediately, but I feel like that kind of continues throughout. And I guess my first question is, would you agree with that? Or is that something I'm just entirely imagining?
And I'll answer that one first, and then you'll ask the second question.
Well, I have some ideas about this, but I do want to, like, if you just say no, that's entirely in your head, then I'll be a little more at sea,
No, I actually do agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's immediately starts with the unknown or if it's a more gradual change.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly by the time you get to, I mean, it's hard because I want to say like book 19, but it's weird because 20 through 22 feels like one book.
Yeah.
So it's probably earlier than that, but yes, it does feel there is something that I don't know if I can articulate right now, but maybe you have ideas and maybe we'll arrive at a conclusion. There is something in the writing that definitely feels like this feels like a different era than the first set.
Yeah, and like if I were to, to expand on that whole gradual idea, I do think that when I think about the feel of it, like book 14, 15, 16 feel more similar to each other, and 20 through 22 feel more similar to each other, not just because of the David thing. With maybe 17 and 18 being more like the David thing. I'm not 100% sure on this, but they do feel distinctly different to me, at least, from the books before. Like, because if I were to go before, I'd be like, yeah, the first maybe 3 or so books, you can tell she hasn't gotten her footing yet. And then like 4 through 13, I'll just kind of feel like, yep, this is some Animorphs, this is some Animorphs. But then it feels like it's evolving over this section.
I think we've established so much already in that first set of books. Even though that doesn't stop, she still introduces a lot of new ideas. It does feel like maybe she can play around. Maybe she feels like more secure, possibly in herself as a writer, but also in the audience, that she now knows that, oh, this book series is successful. I have a little more room. I have liberty to play with this and kind of take people on these journeys. And I know they're going to come with me on them.
Yeah. Yeah,
there are confidence.
There are fewer just completely wild, and this isn't quite what I'm talking about, right? Like I think we're on the same page, but like there are fewer just plots that are just wild out of nowhere. Like, oh, in this book I'm going to introduce an Elemist. In this book I'm going to introduce Pemalites. In this book there's a lot more like, I introduced Eric. Let's have Eric come back and do something. Okay, I threw out this bombshell about Lyrans. Let's have a couple books about Lyrans. Those kind, like, there's fewer just like the whole world is turned on its head, and more like, okay, let's work within that. I'm also wondering if the characters to me feel more like the characters as I first was introduced to them, right? Because I was first introduced to them during this era. Like, it feels like there's a very settled in feeling. Like, she got the hang of what she was doing at the beginning of season 1. And like, at this point, it's like, now it's old hat to write Marco, to write Rachel, to write Cassie.
Yeah.
And there might be some things going on with the structure, but I was also wondering if there weren't real world complications, right? Because as we said, she had a baby. Right. So like book 14, as I understand it, she was like in the maternity ward writing it. Like actively doing that. And so like
that
these books
book 14.
Yeah, they are still coming out every month, despite the fact that she and her husband are now also raising a newborn. And I know Michael Grant is involved in the writing process to some degree. I don't know how much of it is consultation. I don't know how much of it is he ghost writes a couple chapters or something. But I'm wondering if maybe it becomes more of a joint endeavor, and that's also part of the shift in voice here. because it's like I just cannot write a book every month on my own. I'm not sure. I'm wondering if that's something that's...
What you're saying is maybe the books improved because a man got more involved.
Well, I don't even know. We'll get to the rankings because I don't know if they improve. I honestly actually don't know. It's fully possible that I'll look at the rankings and be like, huh, these are better. But
if they are, it's because of a man.
that might be what I'm saying.
And if they're worse, it's because of a man too. The point is the man had the ultimate influence on it.
It's the man who has agency.
I mean, I don't know if any of that comes up in those Anabase questions, but that's something I really wish I knew the process of writing these books.
Yeah, I am sure that it doesn't. Like that she just like doesn't mention it in those questions, but maybe I'll dig more into that. I still haven't dug into that AMA.
Scholastic probably didn't want her to talk about that. It wasn't like...
I wouldn't be surprised, yeah.
Yeah, it's her name on the cover. They're like, don't confuse these kids.
yeah, 100%.
I mean, and I 100% agree with you also on the characters. There's no question that they are across the board. They are all... I think I feel it the most in Rachel and probably Cassie, but I think all of them are much more consistent.
Yeah, I mean, I feel it the most with Jake. Jake really finds his stride during this section. Jake to me was boring all throughout the first bit, and the Jake books here are interesting. Like, she really got a handle on what makes me interested in reading Jake. And even Marco, like, I don't know if his point of view is better, but just like Marco as a background character throwing out one-liners feels a little... like not better developed, but more like natural, more just like, oh yeah, and of course Marco is here too. I didn't even think about that. He's just, as opposed to like, oh, gotta make sure Marco line's in there. Maybe that's me imagining something.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like the books still tend to have an issue to me of, I don't know. It's just a lot of characters to juggle, and sometimes it feels like she just forgot that Cassie should be doing something.
That does come up.
There's like a line by one character, and it's like, oh right, but it's that's just tough to. You just have not enough time in a book to handle everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, whenever it's the character's POV, they get their due.
Yes. And I feel like there's a better... I don't even know if it's better. I almost want to say less consistent, but in a good way. A sense of structure to these books. Like, when we were doing season 1, it really was every book the exact same structure. The stupid opening scene. They try this, they do it for blah, 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 smash ending. And in this, we had a lot of books where they didn't do that. Like, I would say the majority of the books were not that structure. And sometimes I think that really worked, and other times it kind of was a little weird. Like, where like the Lyran book, you could have made the back half of the book the whole book, and it might have been better structured.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I lost it. I was gonna say something.
Sorry.
No, I fucked you up. No, I fucked myself up. What were you just saying before about the Lyrans before that? Just repeat yourself.
I was just talking about... Okay, just talking about how the majority of the books are not that similar structure that was in every single one. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, listeners, I'm sorry. I was going to say... I feel like
that part.
No, I'm not going to. I feel like season 1 felt much more like Power Rangers, like kids TV show. Every week this happens and then this happens and this happens. These books largely feel, I don't know if more adult is necessarily correct, but they do feel a little, they do overall feel a little more mature leaning to me. Less just like this, what's Lord Zed, what's Rita Repulsa doing this week? She's got a new monster to unleash. And you kind of, here comes the Megazord sequence. You always got to see him morph into the Zords.
Do you think that's due more to the theming of the stories or more to the structure of like how they're being told? Or not sure?
I mean, I guess both, but that feels like a cop-out answer.
No, I mean, that's valid. I'm just... making sure that I see where we're coming from.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that's the other thing, because I feel like, we're saying it feels more mature here, and I think I do sort of agree with you on that. Especially the pinnacle of this series is a lot more mature, but I also feel like the prose has simplified to some extent. Like I feel like when we started, I was like, the prose in this series is pretty bad, and you're like, no, it seems fine, and I'm thinking it's better than I remember, and now we're getting here, and we're like, it's getting closer to how I remember it, and I'm pretty sure by the end it's going to be like, yeah, this is where it's not good anymore. I don't necessarily know that makes it bad, but it does feel like there's less flourish on it in some sense.
Interesting. I to be honest, I haven't really noticed any major difference.
I mean, the sound effects have been different. That's not exactly what I was talking about earlier, but quantifiably, I'm certain more space is taken up by the book by just lines that say "tew tew" than in the earlier ones. Yeah,
maybe there's more of that kind of thing to help fill out the books because they're coming out at a faster pace. Yeah, that's true. I mean, my rationalization for it was for any time the prose was, say, simpler, was that they're supposed to be kids writing it.
Right, yeah. And it does work.
Yeah, so it's always worked for me. I've never been, like, blown away. But even, there have been some nice turns of phrase, like even we had just in Hork-Bajir Chronicles. Maybe those Chronicles books are also kind of elevated slightly compared to the normal books, but...
Yeah, I feel like you can't quite compare the Chronicles and the normal books. It's not quite going to work out.
I do think, though, to what you were saying earlier, I think that, if anything, maybe Andalite Chronicles, even though we, kept it as it's the finale of season 1, that feels like the kickoff point, almost like a template in a way for what the rest of what season 2 was of hers. That was her chance to play around more and do something bigger and on a broader scale. And then she said, oh, I could kind of do that kind of thing more in the regular books too, maybe.
Yeah. I had thought about potentially trying to find examples of like similar situations where I could contrast side by side, but I would have like legit had to reread everything, and I did not want to do that. Yeah, on that note, one of the things that really sets this apart from season 1, not in like a just general feel way, but in a like, no, absolutely way, is that we get a lot more multi-book plot lines. And I think that's sort of, you're getting at that with the Andalite Chronicles. Like, what if I told a larger story and not just a series of one-shots, right?
Yeah.
So we had a couple of ongoing plot lines in this. We had the
obviously
whole
David.
Yeah, we had the whole, obviously David. That's a big one. We had the whole Lyran thing, which, I would argue stretches all the way back into book 14. We had Cassie's whole character arc, because she goes through an entire arc in this. There's a little bit of a Rachel arc too. It's less like explicit as an arc, but like there's a build up to it.
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah, I would say it's there, and that's seems to be something that she is experimenting with in these books. Is being like, well, instead of doing week by week, and then hey, you catch when we did that before, a lot more like, no, this is like almost better if you've read the books leading up to it.
Definitely. Yeah, it's still, I feel most of them are still pretty standalone, but they're not as much, they're not they're not so standalone. Like, you could kind of read some of them maybe out of order, but I would say if you haven't read any Animorphs books, you'll be more lost. Like, you're more expected to have familiarity with the series in general in order to really swallow some of these more outlandish concepts.
Clearly I handled it fine. I
guess I underestimate, like, kids can, I think.
Yeah.
They'll just accept anything.
I do think that's a thing, right? Like you look at like in Zoomers won't understand this, but when we
No.
were kids, you'd have Saturday morning cartoons and you'd just come on and jump on in the middle of a series and have no idea what was going on and be like, I figured it out. It's fine. And like now as an adult, I'm so used to just having access to the whole thing that I'm like, boy, if somebody came in the middle of this, they'd be confused. No, you're just
That's true.
stupid. A
Although I
kid can figure it out.
certainly was always very upset if I missed an episode of Pokemon or Dragon Ball Z. So, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I did have issues at a certain point with that because I would alternate like 2 week stretches between my mom's house and my dad's house, and my dad didn't have TV. So I would just be like, well, I just miss half of it in chunks.
I mean, I could talk a long time about how I was truly obsessed with television as a kid. Way more than I am now.
Nobody would have ever guessed that.
Nobody ever would have guessed, but I mean, I was like, when I would go to my dad's office, because my dad is like a freak who would work on Saturday morning all day.
Gross.
Yeah. So he would have to take me to his office. And so I would always tape the Saturday morning cartoons so I could watch them when I got back. And if every once in a while the tape didn't work and I would have a meltdown. Or if we were like, I distinctly remember we were going to like a small family trip, like to like the Catskills or something. And there was like a Dragon Ball Z movie airing and just stuff like that was like, oh, I just have to, like, it's at 8:00. We have to get to this hotel. I gotta watch that tonight or I'll be devastated. Cause it's not coming up. I don't know when it's going to air again.
Yeah. You'll never get to experience it again.
Books, at least, Animorphs books, they'll be on the book order. I can get it the next month.
They'll be in the
as
store.
Far as I know, they'll always be there.
Yeah, that is true. It never would have occurred to me as a kid that I would be able to watch the entirety of those Saturday morning shows anytime I wanted as an adult. But the Animorphs books that were just all in the bookstore every time I went in there, I wasn't going to be able to get my hands on those easily.
Yeah.
Very strange, yeah. Yeah, no, that specifically bringing up DBZ, I don't know if I've told this story before, but so my dad did have TV for a very short period of time before he decided he didn't need it. I'm wondering if this is the reason why. I do remember one time where I couldn't be home for like the newest episode of Dragon Ball Z, right? And this was after they'd been rerunning everything through the Cell Saga for so long, and then it was through the Frieza Saga. I don't remember. They've been rerunning everything through some saga, and so these were like new episodes to me, and I couldn't be there, and I was like, Dad, you have to watch the episode and tell me what happens in it because I don't want to miss anything. And I remember when I got home, he was just like, nothing happened, like literally nothing. They stood around. Which is an accurate summary of any given episode of Dragon Ball Z. And as a kid, I remember being like upset, but as an adult, I'm just like, boy, I feel so bad for putting you through this.
It is funny that I mean, me and my friends every day would spend the whole day talking about what happened on DBZ the day before. And I'm like, what did we talk about?
Have you ever watched Dragon Ball Z as an adult?
Not real, not for years. No, I haven't.
Yeah, it is. Back. It is worse than you remember in terms of being like, and then for 5 minutes, the characters stood there. And then for 5 minutes, they powered up. And then for 5 minutes, characters reacted to them having powered up. And then next time on Dragon Ball Z, they might even get to starting the fight. It's really bad.
Millennials love this podcast conversation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
By the way, I also want to say, I was talking about my dad working on Saturdays. I recognize that many people work on Saturdays. But my dad is a lawyer. Like, he didn't have to work on Saturday. Like, he chose to do that.
A lawyer.
Yeah, well, just like Rachel.
That's true.
I'm a lot like Rachel. So, fuck, right. Her dad's a TV guy. Anyway, I just wanted to paint that picture. I'm not looking down on the many people of the world who need to work on Saturday because that is,
Sure.
retail, what have you. I'm just saying it was just like an office job.
Right. This was back in the day when it was possible to have like a real job that paid enough money to support a family.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right. What are your other bullet points?
I mean, I was potentially curious in just going back, having introduced these arcing plot lines, just kind of talking about each of them, anything that tickles your fancy about any of them in particular here, and like how well do you think they were handled? How did you like it? Do you want to see anything with that going forward, or um
Okay.
Oh, I know we're probably gonna have a lot to say about the David trilogy in particular, even though we already said a lot about it. um, Maybe not. I don't know. But I mean, for me personally, I do. We have already talked about how much we love Book 19, but I love Cassie's development here. Like in particular, I think she has a really interesting and well done arc here.
Yeah, I think I said before, Cassie and Rachel. I
Hmm.
don't know both of them. I think maybe you could criticize them for being a little like a lot of the development happens in one book, and then I think you
Hmm.
kind of have to look back, and once you've seen the end, then you can sort of form a bigger
Hmm.
picture as opposed to it being as much in the text.
Yeah, and that is definitely more of a problem with Rachel's than with Cassie's, because I do feel like it is pretty. Like I guess you didn't notice it that much in the underground. I did point it out, I remember, but like it is notable in the underground when Cassie is just like, I don't even know what's right or what's wrong anymore, and it's like, what the fuck is going on there?
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah,
there's
it's
a
it's
yeah,
there. It's there for both of them, I think. But yeah, go on.
no, yeah, I think that is like really cool, and I this kind of goes back to The Secret, my favorite book. Um, you know, talking about like liking things better when you know the end. Like I think what I like about The Secret is that so many of the boring times when Cassie's just sitting around musing, she's like specifically thinking about things that like come up again and get directly like attacked and resolved in her arc here. And it is almost like the existence of book 19 elevates book 9 for me. And without knowing the ending, it's like, okay, but that's nothing.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I could see. Again, this is a. I'm curious how the comics handle this. I know you've read some of those. I haven't.
Yeah, I mean, they're only done up
I know they're
through
very
3 at
early.
this moment, but yeah,
Yeah. But this is a thing we've talked about before, where I'm like, if I were to make the Animorphs
yeah.
HBO series, I would just I would want to make those seeds more obvious and more
Hmm.
consistent. I don't like I don't think I don't know. I don't think Kay Applegate had a fully fleshed out picture of where Cassie was headed at that point.
Hmm.
So I just wish it was more intentional.
Yeah,
Uh
that is reasonable. I mean, one of the it does seem to be her style to just throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. So some of it's really good and some of it's kind of crappy, and that would be one of the real advantages of a remake of Animorphs is that now that you know what's
yeah.
stuck, you can get rid of
Right.
all the other crap you were throwing.
It's kind of how I feel. It's kind of like I don't know, it's almost like this is like her big D&D campaign.
Mm,
And
mm-hmm,
it's like you're making it up as you go, but like then if you were, like a lot of fantasy writers, George R. R. Martin, uh they get they've said a lot of their writing process came from playing D&D. And it's almost like I wish that she just didn't have time. I wish she had sometimes, and this feels, I don't mean this to be as insulting as it sounds, but sometimes Animorphs feels like the outline for a better series. like
yeah,
it's like, oh, now that like she's figuring it out, a lot of this stuff it feels as she goes. And
mm-hmm,
that's why I have this desire of like I would love for there to be a kind of a remake, a retelling, cuz if you just rearrange some of these pieces, it could be truly something that's even better than it is now, I think.
yeah,
But it's
yeah.
like, yeah.
And going to the whole Lirin arc, that does feel like like there is this idea where it's like, oh, I just had this idea. What if we put Yeerks in horses? And that sparks this idea in her head. Ah, we could put Yeerks in something else, like sharks or something. That because I already did it with horses. And then that sort of becomes this potential through line, which again is not explicit, but I stand by it, that that this is like an experimental branching out that the Yeerks are doing here, and that them in them getting into horses or doing these experiments or whatever directly leads into um, them doing these shark experiments here as well. But even if I read that in, it is very clear that these are just ideas that came in off the cuff. Um, and you do also wonder when they first introduced the Lyrans in book 15, does she actually have any intention of bringing Lyrans back? Does it matter at all? Are we ever going to see him again? And yeah, in 3 books, we get to like directly participate in the Lyran War and turn the tide of the Lyran War. But she could have also just as easily been like, oh, they destroyed the shark thing, so they didn't have shark troops, so they didn't win on Lyra, and we just never see Lyrans again. Fuck it.
Right. Which would be maybe the norm for season 1.
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
Wile E. Coyote, as I like to say.
Yeah. So, what do you think about? I mean, how many books are in this thing? What, 14 through 14?
9 15, plus 16, the 2 spin-offs.
Yeah, 9 and is that right?
So a total of 11 books. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So 9 and the 2. So a full third of the non-spin-off books are the David trilogy, are a single story.
Yeah.
So especially as we started getting toward the latter half of this season, we kind of had like a big story in Megamorphs, a 3-parter, Hork-Bajir Chronicles. So it's kind of been a while since we've had like any one-shot stories.
Yeah, and even I mean, the Departure is a one-shot that's right in the middle there, but it also feels like I don't know. It feels very momentous.
Yeah, it's special. It does not feel like a regular Animorphs book. I'll say that right
now. Certainly
like,
not. Yeah.
Yeah. There is something elevated about that particular book, and I think part of that comes from they're just not doing any of their regular stuff in it.
So I think it's not since book 18, The Decision, we really had just like a. Well, wait, The Decision is the one where they go to Lyra.
Yeah.
That is like fucking a crazy ass book though.
Yeah, that one is like 2 books, and it's just kind of all weird and jammed together.
The Underground maybe is the last book that was really just a kind of a regular book.
Yeah. No, so we have not had that in a while, and when we start getting those again next season, they're gonna be ghost written. So yeah, I mean that is I hadn't really thought about it from that perspective before, but like when's the last one-shot story that I mean she'll write some one-shot stories going into the next season, I guess. They'll come up relatively frequently, but yeah, no, that is interesting. That's such a long stretch of time is just all real stories, and part of the reason that she's gonna switch to a ghostwriter is because around this time is when she starts working on Everworld, which is a lot less episodic and a lot more like one coherent through line of a story. I wonder if there's some like progression there where before Animorphs she was, as far as I understand, mostly doing ghostwriting for other series. And so she's by nature doing these one shots, and like she's kind of hit this point where she's like, I'm doing longer stories now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much we want to talk about the ghostwriting thing in this episode, but I'm very curious to see how that's going to go. And now and to be aware of it and thinking about that as we read.
Yeah, I mean, I was not aware of it when I read it as a kid, but like I'm going to bring it up because I've never really thought seriously about it, even as an adult.
I assume it's Seropedia tells you which ones are which.
It should, yes, but also I believe that every ghostwritten book will have a dedication page with the name, and they're mostly pseudonyms, so the name doesn't necessarily mean anything, but like,
Well, I think we might have to do some detective work.
Might have to. I do potentially have some sources I can look to for that. So I got some tricks up my sleeve. Up my sleeve.
Love that Dr. Seuss book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in favor of the longer arcs. I mean, I like it. I think they're obviously good. I prefer serialized storytelling, pretty much, or at least a combination of, Monster of the Week and serialization. So I was a fan of that.
Yeah. And on that note, I think I asked you this last time and got sort of an answer, but like in particular, moving forward as we do go into season 3, what would you want to see? What would you like if they did, and what are you maybe afraid that they might do?
Yeah, so here we go. Well,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like the whole series to be a David trilogy. Like I want that interconnected. I want book to book to want to know what happens next. I mean, it doesn't always have to be like a cliffhanger. And I think they've mostly done that. I mean, it's not like there's been more callbacks, I think, at least than season 1. Maybe not. I don't know. I mean, obviously more because of those 3-parters and stuff, but they do, I think, reward you a little bit here and there for having read these in order, which is what I like, and I appreciate that. So I'd like to see that continue. I mean, I want to see these characters continue to become fucked up. I want to see Rachel, and I want to see all of them just descend into trauma and horrors.
God, we didn't even bring that up. Like, that is in terms of ongoing arcs, the fact that all of them are descending into
the series is getting much darker. Absolutely. That's part of it. I mean, that's part of the like feeling like it's more mature. It has been darker. They've been getting, even though it started off, there's always been violence and stuff, but it feels now like it's more about the toll it's taken on their souls.
Yeah, and I do appreciate all those little moments when they're at school or at home. They've been doing a good job sprinkling them in through this section, because sometimes I was missing them a little bit in the first bit.
Yeah. Now in season 1, I think I said that I was worried about. My fear was that it was gonna be more filler and more silly stuff. And season 2, with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions, didn't really do that. Now, of course, so that's still kind of my concern, especially knowing now is when we're getting into the ghostwriters. Obviously, that's a concern because I'm assuming those books probably aren't as good. But maybe I'll be surprised. Maybe some of them are good or better than average. I don't know. But that's obviously, to me, the number one warning sign. And again, just like, I mean, I've said it before, but it's just a lot of the books in this season to me feel like late game books. The David trilogy feels like what you maybe start writing about like when you're winding down a series, not when you're moving into you haven't even crossed the halfway point yet. So it feels to me like it's inevitable that there's going to be just a string of filler books, and I don't know when those are going to drop, or if they are going to be interspersed more evenly, or if it's just going to be like, here's 6 of those.
Yeah, that's interesting because like some of the filler books are fun, and I'm wondering if maybe that'll have an impact on you, where a filler book will happen. I'll be like, yeah, this is a fun one. And you'll be like, I almost hear what you're saying, but is this the beginning of the end?
Yeah, filler can sometimes get a bad rap, used as a dirty word. Filler is not always bad. Like a book could, I mean, hell, The Departure, some people would probably call that filler because it doesn't strictly move the plot forward. But
yeah, I would disagree though.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, to some people, filler means the plot doesn't move.
That feels dumb, because if the character arc moves, then
yeah, I agree with you.
As opposed to like, here's the thing: if you excised it, my view of the characters in the world and everything, it changes not at all.
Well, to me, I assume you haven't watched Breaking Bad, have you?
I watched the first 2 seasons of Breaking Bad, and that's it.
Weird. But I don't think you saw the episode The Fly.
I don't think so.
But to bring it back to The Last Jedi, The Fly is an
Yes,
episode
thank you.
directed by Rian Johnson.
Okay.
And
Now
it's
I
a
understand.
very polarizing episode, which some people like
course.
me think it's one of, if not the best episode of the series. Other people think it's the worst episode of the series.
Rian
And
Johnson's great.
it's kind of a bottle episode that's just Walt and Jesse in the lab, and there's a fly in the lab, and Walt like goes crazy trying to get this fly. And it's like an exploration of those characters, and that kind of thing I love. I love a bottle episode. I love there to be just a one-off that's more exploring maybe things we already know, but fleshing them out. I mean, that's what I want more. So maybe me saying I want more serialization is antithetical to what I really want, which is I want deeper exploration of things we've already had as well. So I don't know. I don't know what I want. I want a lot of things.
Interesting. Yeah, we'll see how that pans out. I do know we've got some controversial filler books coming up that people love or hate or whatever. So I'm curious. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll get into this when we get into our rankings here too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I will say overall, season 2 as a whole, I think that I enjoyed reading season 1. There's a lot of good books in it. There's a lot of fun content to be mined there and discussed. Season 2, I think, mainly from this stretch towards the end from 19 through Hork-Bajir, maybe you could even lump Megamorphs 2 in there. I don't know. I feel like that is kind of the segment that solidified my feeling of, I think I actually am a fan of Animorphs, and not just like, oh, it's kind of fun to read these books, or it's nostalgic, or, there's moments of greatness here and there, but really specifically 19 and the David trilogy as a whole are where I'm like, oh, this is the point where, I could go back and reread season 1, I think, and feel like you, where if there's lesser moments, I'm like, now I know where it's going and I know the heights it can reach. I feel more secure in being like, this is good.
Yeah.
For me, this was, and I think you had kind of said that at the beginning, that for you, season 2 was like, it was your first books that you read. So kind of at a special place in your heart. But I do think this feels like an important watermark for the series.
That's nice. Yeah, and it is my feeling because I have not done my rankings yet here. It is my feeling that it's probably going to be better than season 1, but I'd have to see it to.
That I'm
sure.
not. Yeah, I need to open up. I don't have the.
We'll see.
Here's the tier list. Yeah, from our first season. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I might be better overall too. But I guess why don't we do it now?
Yeah, I think we're probably ready to start in on this here.
And let's just, so briefly, I will kind of summarize. The way we did it last time, which I think works, is I'll start and kind of say how I'm feeling. And then I feel like you have you'll remember the book better than me, and you'll probably have a more nuanced take. And then we come to an agreement together on where it lands on our combined list.
Yeah. And I'll try to do a little less talking this time so we get through it.
And for any listeners who didn't listen to season 1, we'll share an image in the description of our final list for this season. And this is, of course, ranked from F through S, being the best tier.
Yes.
So the first one is The Unknown, and this is the Cassie Horse book, in which
otherwise known as the Andalite Toilet book.
Yes, they go to Zone 91 and discover an Andalite toilet. And this, coming from what we were just saying, I was terrified reading this book because I thought this is what the series is going to be now. I'm very relieved on the other side of it to see that at this point in the series is more of an anomaly. And because of that, for me, I think this book, I think I want to give it a C. I could kind of see giving it a D, but I think because it's like stupid enough to me that it's funny, And because it didn't start a downward trend, I can forgive it a little bit and say, oh, it's a silly book that you can kind of ignore or just laugh at it. So I think for me, it's a C.
Yeah, I mean honestly, I kind of have to agree with you pretty much exactly. In that like
Boom.
reading it, I come in and I say like this kind of looks like a D, doesn't it? But come on, it's the book with the Andalite toilet. You gotta like the book with the Andalite toilet, huh? Because remember how funny that was when we were kids, and then you say, and everyone's like, yeah, the funny one with the toilet, because it was an anomaly, and so it's hard for me to go lower than C, but it just can't be better because it's just not.
Yeah, I mean there's the whole
Yeah,
amusement park thing,
yeah,
which is
yeah. No,
really dumb.
it does feel to me like it kind of is a D elevated by the fact that it's iconically dumb.
Right. All right, so I think
We'd
we're
be on the same page, yeah.
yes. So that one we're good. That's a C. Now next is the escape. Marco turns into a hammerhead shark. He tries to find his mom, and I guess this is where Lyrans are introduced, right? And there's
Yes, we meet
the
our
scene in
first Lyran.
the aquarium and all that stuff.
Yes.
I'll be honest. This book, for whatever reason, in my mind, didn't make. I can't. It didn't leave as much of an impression in terms of me loving it or hating it. I think it was. I think it was good. I mean, Lyrans is interesting. I don't think it stood out to me as being particularly great, so I feel like my safe rating for it is a B in my head. But I don't know if I feel like maybe, hopefully, you have a better take.
I honestly kind of don't. I actually snapped it into B to start before I listened to what you were saying. And part of the problem with this book is that this was in that first like after I got the most recent book, I read book 4 because someone lent it to me. I got the most recent book 20. I got Megamorphs because it was the most recent. I got this one because it had a shark on it and I liked fish and
Hell
ocean
yeah.
stuff. So this is one of the first books I read, and it's one of the ones that I reread the most because I didn't have very many to reread. So, like, it's difficult for me. There's a lot of scenes in this book that almost don't feel like Animorphs. They feel like pre-Animorphs to me. It's like, yeah, that was that story that was like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it
Like,
is, and I do think there's some pretty dumb stuff in this one too.
mm-hmm,
But I think what saves it is Marco and
mm-hmm,
relationship to his mom. I think
yeah.
that is the core of it that still works.
Yeah, 100%. Like when I reread it, that part is still very good and very powerful. When I think of it in my head, I remember like the hammerhead conveyor line, the underwater at the aquarium being chased by guards, because a lot of those scenes were extremely like vivid and easily imaginable to me as a child reading it. And like I said, I almost associate them more with like some of the older, like maybe like smattering of Goosebumps books that I had read up until that point more than Animorphs because I read them so early. Um, and
Yeah.
maybe also because some of those scenes are kind of horrifying. I don't know.
This is also the book with the Amazon cafe and the freeing the
Yes.
birds, the parrots.
Yeah. And that's another one of those scenes that's just like in my head, it's always iconically season 2. It's like, yeah, that happens in every season 2 book because I read that one so many times. Oh yeah, it's this one, right?
So B for the escape.
Yeah, I'm down with a B for it. I do agree that it's not particularly impactful on the whole, but I remember it very
But it's
fondly.
better than the unknown for sure.
Oh
So
yeah, for
it's
sure.
got
It's
to be
better
a
than the
B.
unknown. It can't be. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Next is number 16, The Warning, in which
Hmm.
Jake turns into a rhino. And this is the AOL
Yes.
book, or WAA,
WAA, Web Access America? Yeah.
where they meet Joe Bob Fenestra, who is Visser 3's twin brother.
Hmm.
Um, I really like this book. It frustrates me that we don't see him pop up a lot more. There's
I
some,
know.
and it is also very, you know, the internet stuff is a bit dated, which is kind of fun, but maybe not. And there's more very silly stuff in this book as well, like when they distract the Yeerks or whatever with the bear dance or whatever. The bear does a juggling act or something.
Yeah. It's like mopping the carpet.
I wrote this one as a B, but I might be able to be convinced to go as high as an A if you feel it's better than that, but I'm not sure.
This might be our predator because I like to me this one's an S. To me, this
an S.
Yeah, to me this one just has everything I like about Animorphs in it. Like those stupid scenes to me, I love them because it's like, yeah, that's all the dumb parts of Animorphs that I like, but it's such a short span that I don't have to put up with it for an entire book. I get that too, on top of all the cool stuff. It's the book where I really first connect with Jake. It's the book where we got the trauma and the frank discussions of PTSD with Jake being swatted as a fly. We've got this like really cool character of the Yeerk cannibal and this really interesting idea of like, oh, he's a cannibal Yeerk? What's going on there? That's so neat. You get Cassie's moral qualms over what to do about him. Is it okay to kill him? What's going on with the Gump, the kid? It's just got everything that I like about Animorphs books, all just kind of packed into one book. And, before I did it on this podcast, I probably would have been settled more on an A. Because, it'd be like, yeah, those are all scenes that happened around this time in Animorphs, and a lot of them are from that book, but kind of reading it being like, oh no, they're all in this book. All of the scenes in this book are something that I loved. It just makes me feel like an S.
I mean, okay, you've definitely convinced me to an A.
Mm-hmm.
I think, honestly, part of what's holding me back, and I don't think this won't be shocking if people are listeners of our podcast, but I feel like the fact that the departure exists, it just sets a benchmark to me that's like, before I was judging Animorphs book against each other, and now I'm like judging them against the departure. And to me, it is that it is just elevated to a point where I'm like, I can't say this is on that level. But of course they serve different purposes.
Yeah, I mean, it's not on that level. It's just not. It's almost like, the departure really does kind of need its own. And we sort of had this problem because last time, if I look at our S ranks, we have the Stranger on there, which is also just not on that level, and the Change and the Andalite Chronicles. But like, if I think about the Stranger and the Change and the Andalite Chronicles, the Chronicles does kind of stand above the rest, right?
I don't know. We put it lower than them, didn't we?
Did we?
Or is this the opposite?
I don't know.
I don't know how you arranged this. I think you did it. Yeah, this isn't the way I would have done it. I think I changed it.
I mean, whatever. I think that was a waste of time trying to like put it in order.
It was good. Right, we did put Andalite Chronicles as our top S. That was our favorite book of season 1.
Okay, and I think that did stand above the rest, and the departure stands even higher than that. But we are going to run into a problem where if that defines S, then like nothing's going to get to S. This is the pinnacle.
It might need an S plus.
The double S ranking.
So I'm like, I don't know. I'm split on this one. I feel like A is probably the safe bet. Maybe you're right. I don't know why I'm being wishy-washy about it, but it didn't quite reach the heights. Maybe part of it is like really just when he goes to get a rhino. I just think it was dumb.
The dumb rhino. Is part of it also just that they never come back to this character? Is that sort of reducing it in retrospect?
Maybe it's like if the fact that, I wish that this mattered more, or I do love those AOL chat room conversations.
They're really good. Yeah, because I'm not really taking that into account for this book.
Or maybe I'm just taking more points off for the dumbness, and you're just enjoying the dumbness more than I am.
Yeah, could be.
I see where you're coming from, though. Like, if you're looking at Animorphs as a whole, and you're like, what do you love about Animorphs? And it's like the 90s and all that shit. I'm not like, I don't think you're crazy for saying it's an S.
Yeah, I mean, it is hard. It is hard to deny that this book has in it everything that makes Animorphs Animorphs, and maybe some of that stuff isn't good. I'll grant you that. But
I do think, like, I think the change is better than this, personally.
yeah, I think I would probably agree with that. Yeah,
And maybe The Stranger too, although to be honest, again, my memory fades faster and faster these days.
I do think I like it better than The Stranger, but I could fully understand not.
So I'm leaning more towards an A, but if you're really feeling strong about it, I won't fight you on this.
We could pop it into A. I would be fine with popping it into A.
All right. Let's pop it there for now.
Yeah, this is our combined list. We don't all have to agree on everything.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that I originally was at a B, it's like, I guess I can't really jump 2 letters, can I? I don't know. I'll reread it and let you know. At the end of our show, we'll do an entire reevaluation.
Okay.
Next is number 17, The Underground. This is Rachel turning into a bat. This is when they turn into moles to dig underneath the ground and find the Yeerk pool. And also there's a lot of insensitive stuff about the mentally ill and suicide.
Hold on. I gotta bump up my grade here. I forgot about
this was another one where I was kind of like, I'm not really sure, but I'm kind of feeling a C. Maybe. This is the oatmeal book. Right.
Yes, this is the oatmeal book. Yeah.
Yeah, this is similar to The Unknown, where it's maybe not as dumb, or maybe it's just dumb in a different way, but it is pretty dumb. I think C is what I'm feeling on this one.
Yeah, I feel that too. And it's almost more inconsistent, right? Where it's like the oatmeal is iconically dumb, which I love, but the dumbness isn't played up to the extent that it is in The Unknown, so maybe it's not that good. But it also has this interesting ethical component, like, is it really okay to be doing this? But they don't really explore that either, and you've got some cool and fun scenes, but then you've also got the mole scenes, which do not captivate me the way that Cassie's skunk scenes did. To me, this book, it's like everything that I like about this book is balanced by something that I really do not like about it. And so I would agree with you that it would fit on the C level, but almost not because it's just generically a C, right? Because it's like all over the place.
It's a C plus or something.
Sure.
It's a C with an asterisk. Happy Meal with extra happy. Remember Hunter robots?
I do remember Hunter robots.
Remember Gleet biofilters?
I mean, Gleet biofilters sort of are important in that affects from now on how they get into the Yeerk pool.
All right. Next up is number 18, The Decision.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Axe turning into a mosquito. This is the book that has the first half is them doing a thing that doesn't matter at all. And then they go to the planet Lyra and fight in a crazy ass Lyran Yeerk war.
Yes.
And this is a very ambitious book. This is the one where I really feel like directly feels like kind of another mini Andalite Chronicles just happening in the middle of a book here. There's a lot of Z-Space stuff happening. It's crazy. I really like that second half. There's a lot of wasted time in the book, which is why I don't think you can possibly go higher than a B, but that's what I think.
Interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, and this is one of those ones that is also difficult for me to separate from nostalgia. Because for me, this one is an A just for the back half. And it's interesting because I had the opposite reaction to the capture.
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, where the back half of the capture is great. And then I was so bored in the first one when I had to reread it that I decided I hated it. And this one, it's I remember this one as being great. And I was really bored in the first half, and then it won me back in the back half in a way that the capture didn't.
I think I liked the capture more than you too. I think that part swayed me more than it did you. And for some reason, Maybe it's again just a matter of perspective of like at that time we hadn't seen a Yeerk do something like that before, and here I'm like, oh, I already read the Andalite Chronicles. We've been to space. We've done this kind of stuff. It's not as good as it was then.
Yeah, it is interesting because I did love the change as a child because I loved that back half, and similarly here I loved
the
this
capture.
Yes, right? I don't know why I said the change. Yeah, I did love the capture as a child, just because of that back half, and the same was true with this. I loved this book just because of that back half, but for some reason this one grabbed me more, and maybe it's because of the fact that like, listen, I like wild alien environments. I like being on Lyra. I like the bright hole. I want the ocean with all the weird animals. So, give me a crazy environment with a totally different biology and a totally different, like, give me some weird fish swimming around. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm this close to just giving it to you, but then I'm like, just look at that mosquito again. I'm like, why? What was that for?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know.
I want to agree with you, but I'm not fully on board, but I could just give in.
Yeah. I mean, I could also bump it down on the rationale of like, there are going to be a number of books in this series that are, going to be unfairly positioned for me because of my nostalgia. Like, this was the first Axe book I read. I got this one before I got the Alien,
Well, how about this for a compromise? I think we put the decision in A, but on the condition that we bump the capture up to a B.
I mean, I'm totally down to do that, and if you're willing to edit the old rankings. But then we got a whole new can of worms opening up, because then I start looking at some of these books and being like, maybe I changed my mind on that.
No, that's fine. We'll just keep it here. Whatever. We'll keep that in mind. For now, we'll just put the decision as an A, I guess.
I was going to say, you could also just, if you do the official one, you could just put it somewhere and not tell me where you put it.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. All right,
it's somewhere in between those two.
I don't know where we're going to land on this one. Next is the Megamorphs 2 in the Time of Dinosaurs. I don't think I need to give you the story of this one. It's the one with the dinosaurs.
It's the one with the dinosaurs.
And the Mercora and the Vin, the what's the Nesk?
The Nesk, yes, the Nesk.
I wonder if you'll talk me up on this one too. I put it down as a B. I guess I think it's better than the first I do think it's better than the first Megamorphs. We talked about this in that episode too. I like the first Megamorphs a little better than you did. It's certainly more ambitious. There's certainly more going on. Dinosaurs are cool as hell. I'm not sure what's holding me back from A's status, but maybe it's just the fact that none of it really matters, but I don't know. That doesn't always bother me. So
yeah. What do you think? I mean, okay, so
maybe it's just that I think there's just too much going on. Maybe I just would have been happier with a book about dinosaurs than without the fucking Mercora and all that shit.
Yeah, not me. I love those Mercora.
By the way, what the fuck? Seropedia plot summary just says to be added. They didn't get to this one? Fuck?
Jesus Christ.
What the fuck really are you doing? The book's been out for 30 years. Fucking fuck are you doing? It's not that
hard to just go in there and type. Jesus Christ. We're not going to do it, but this is one I am not going to be able to talk you up on. I did place it in A, but you are almost certainly right that it's like 100%. It's got to be worse than I feel like it is, because it's too early in my reading schedule to have a real opinion on. Like it's one of those things where it's like if some person who'd never seen Star Wars before was like, I just watched A New Hope and like, it's pretty good. Like, it's pretty good, I guess. I don't know why it's like a phenomenon. Like, why do you love it so much? You'd be like, how could you not? How do I even begin to defend it? But looking at it, it's like, I still am not putting it at an S. You know what I mean? So like, I'm totally willing to bump this down to a B if you're good on that.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's interesting. It keeps you guessing. There's stuff happening, but and again, dinosaurs are cool. But I don't know. There was all this. I had issues with it. Are like their deaths not really being mourned that appropriately, or just like dumb things like Tobias. Oh, he can't morph because he just can't here. Yeah, that's stupid enough for me to say I think I want to keep it at B.
Yeah, I mean the only thing that the Tobias thing, whatever, I'll get over that. I do sort of agree with you on the deaths, and I do think that you could have knocked at least a quarter off the book by just not repeating, like tightening up the dinosaur sections a bit. But then you wouldn't have dinosaurs as much, so I don't even know. Anyway, but I mean, it's got dinosaurs. It's got Mercora. I love Mercora. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I can't talk you up. It's just not possible. And B is probably correct. That does put it like fairly close in ranking to the first Megamorph. Like how? Because to me feeling higher on this and feeling lower on the first Megamorphs, to me, there's like a world of difference between those two books. Would you consider them to be like fairly close?
Well, like I said, I know I liked the first Megamorphs more than you did. I just thought it was like I think this one is certainly better written, like from a technical standpoint. They're, to me, they are both roughly in the same category of like, it's just a fun adventure that's not like really doesn't blow your mind. Well, maybe this one does. It doesn't in terms of, yeah, I don't know. It's just like, yeah, that's fun. It's like a movie. It's the movie of the week of Animorphs, and it's cool to watch, but it's not like something to me that's truly impactful.
This is the one where after the series is over, if people are like, tell me some random shit that happens in Animorphs, you can be like, Tobias kills the dinosaurs.
Right.
Right. Like, it's always good to have just something completely bonkers to throw out there.
You may be right. Like, I would put this at the top of the B tier and probably the first one towards the bottom of B tier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm fine. I'm fine with it. I'm not going to try to pretend that.
Let's fucking move on.
Let's do it. This next one 19, should not take long.
I don't think we need to just really go into detail. The departure, the one where Cassie meets a Yeerk. I think we both agree, and based on the episode, it's obvious that it's an S book.
Yeah, it is an S book. Now, in that episode, I think you said you were thinking you liked it better than the Andalite Chronicles. Would you hold to that?
100%.
I would also hold to that. I like it better than the Andalite Chronicles.
At this point,
and I do. I'm very, very open also to the argument. We haven't gotten there yet, but open. Yeah, I would be very open to the idea that this is just the best book in the series. I can only think, like, I've said it before, I like the Hork-Bajir Chronicles better, but, I can totally see where that's coming from, a nostalgia point. And if that's the case, if you knock that out of the running, there's only one book that competes with this, and that would not be the Andalite Chronicles for me. And it would be a different Chronicles.
Right. Who knows what that is?
Who knows which one?
So that's, so the departure, yes, we agree it's an S. It's an S plus.
Yeah, it's an S plus. It's the best.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Now, just in the interest of speeding things along, I think we should let's just discuss the David trilogy all together. I think.
Sure. Because can I say this before we begin? To me, there is a clear escalation in quality, although not necessarily how I feel about them.
Yes, I agree. Well, so I'll just say it. I mean, I don't think people need us to recap. They meet David. He becomes a guy. To me, these are the freshest in my mind and they stand out the most outside of the departure from this season. I just gave them in ascending order, B, A, S. I think the solution is absolutely an S. The threat, you could argue, is maybe still a B, but I give it more credit for that back half. And the discovery, you could also argue maybe is a C, but I still think maybe like we said, maybe I'm giving it more retroactive credit for how good it becomes later on, but I still liked it. I still think it did establish things. So to me, it's a BAS. Well said,
I'm
Jonathan.
kind of okay with that. To me, I do think that the 100% on the solution being an S. I do think the threat, it's less the back half of it that bumps it up. It's more like the back 2 chapters that bump it up. So to me, I don't know that I would bump it all the way up to an A.
You may be
Um,
right.
but then I do look at 20 and I say objectively this is worse, but I just can't. I love the thing, the big garbage thing, and Beakonoma, but I mean it's not as good as the threat.
It maybe should be CBS, but I'm being maybe just overly kind because I like the end so much, which is what we
Yeah,
talked about, is that people like this trilogy because they remember the end.
and it's so hard to separate those things, right? When it's all one story, it's like, well, what do you feel about the first half of this story? And it's like,
Right.
what kind of question is that?
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Why don't we just keep it BAS? We'll give it the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, sure, I'm fine with that.
And then finally, we most recently just talked about the Hork-Bajir Chronicles. I know that I'm not even going to fight it. I'm fine with this being an S tier.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me personally, it's an A.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's as good as the Andalite Chronicles for
Mm-hmm.
me. But I also had my issues with the Andalite Chronicles. I didn't think it was perfect.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I think a lot of people would consider the Hork-Bajir Chronicles not as good as the Andalite Chronicles, and I can see, if I try to put on my objective glasses, I can see it being worse. I just can't quite do it. I'm a little surprised that it bumps down so low that it's an A for you, though, as
Oh,
opposed to an
really?
S.
Well,
I
to
mean,
be
maybe not.
honest, I almost even Andalite Chronicles. I was sort of
Hmm,
on the edge of A and S. To be honest with you, I mean,
interesting.
I think I said as much.
Like when you put it in, or like now in retrospect, you're on the
No,
edge.
I think I said it at the time too. It's
Oh,
more like
okay.
because there are like in that book it was the whole Chapman thing,
Mm-hmm.
and in this book it's like the romance thing and maybe one or two other things that I feel like there's enough flaws that stick out to me that I'm like I don't know that I can. It's hard for me to say it's truly an S because that's like the best of the best.
Yeah.
Um, but I get it. Like I think the overall picture, the story that it tells, its importance in the series, it's kind of the same thing to me as the Andalite Chronicles. It's like I have issues with some of the finer points of the storytelling and the characterization, but I have to step back and just like look at what this is and what occurs in it and what that means for the series. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that outweighs in these cases the particulars of the writing. So I get it. I'm fine with
Mm-hmm.
we could put it in S, and I think
Okay.
that's makes
Yeah,
sense.
it would be very hard for me to settle on anything less than an S for this one. But
Yes, I mean yes. I mean if it's your favorite Animorphs book, like
yeah,
how could we not? Even if I didn't like it, it almost feels wrong.
well,
Like it
then we'd
has
have to have a fist fight. But
we would then we'd have to have separate tiers. So and we're not talking about the individual list rankings maybe, but like
yeah, whatever.
compared to season 1, we 5 of our books in season 1 we put in C. Only 2 from this season did we put in C.
Yeah, and when I look at the splits, here they're actually, if you just look A and above, B and below, they're about half and half for both. But there was one more in the below for season 1 and one more in the above for season 2. So they're pretty close, but it seems like it is on the whole a little better.
On the whole, yes, we ranked them higher. So now I probably, like I said, well, that depends on if we bumped the capture up to a B and
Oh,
maybe
that's true.
probably the Forgotten should be bumped up to a B, and probably the
I
Secret
don't
should
know
be
about
bumped down
that.
to a D. But
Well, either way, that keeps my A and above, B and below split the same,
but
though.
yes, I do think we're in alignment that overall we liked season 2 better than season 1.
Hmm.
Which is not
Yeah.
necessarily what I expected, and also not necessarily what like people on the Reddit were saying they thought.
Yeah. Yeah, that is. I actually remember last time. I think people were saying they really liked the first books. Yeah, so that is interesting.
Yes, they thought those were the most consistent was the thing that was said.
Hmm.
Well, let's get into that a little bit. Let's hear, because I did make a post on the Reddit asking people once again their thoughts on this season of books, and didn't get as many responses as the first time, but fuck you guys.
That's good, because I don't want to spend too much time on Reddit, because we still got to talk about Nick No Name's email.
Yeah, don't worry. We're saving that for last. Best for last.
Okay, good.
So let's see. Gucci Piggy 90.
Oh, God.
Said that they're literally at the 22nd book, so this thread is perfect for them.
Whoa!
They said, I think this is a strong run. The kinks from the initial books have been worked out, and there really aren't any duds, although they say the underground probably comes closest. They disliked that more than the toilet. Not too big on Megamorphs 2, but that's because I find the first 2 Megamorphs books to be too long. I could probably agree with that. The Warning is a great character development book for Jake, as is The Departure for Cassie, plus the David trilogy is very intense.
Yeah, agreed on all fronts.
Error Fox Detected said, no comment from me on the question you're asking, but I wanted to say I'll check out your podcast. I didn't know there were any Animorphs podcasts.
Oh, they're about to step into a whole new world here.
Yes, in fact, there are a lot. So, but if you listen, whatever your starting point you had, maybe you've been listening and you finally made it here and you heard us read that comment. So congratulations. Daragon said, while what would be considered the first season overall had my favorite collective stories, season 2 had my favorite individual stories. Hork-Bajir and Megamorphs 2 are powerhouses in terms of storytelling and characterization. Well, especially Megamorphs 2, when faced with some of the moral dilemmas in that one. And it really shows how important of a character Tobias is overall, because everyone is focused on should we or shouldn't we, because it's right and wrong, while Tobias thinks more along the lines of what the hell happens if we don't. It's a great book, even if the premise is a bit goofy. He makes some strong points that maybe I was a little too hard on the Megamorphs too. There's some good stuff in there with Tobias, and that's something maybe we didn't talk about enough in general, was Tobias's arc in this season, because he does reckon with being more a part of the group in this season.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe I feel like we did sort of forget him because he didn't get his book. But yeah,
he does have a book in this season.
No, that's why I really wanted to get 23 in here, but it just doesn't fit.
Jesus.
I know, it's so sad. But yeah, like Tobias does have kind of an arc here, since he can finally frickin' morph.
And also because so much of that happened in the change, which is right. That's the one where he gets the Elemist powers.
Yes. Yeah.
So it does feel like that's kind of where most of that focus is. And now it's like, oh yeah, now he can be part of the gang too. But yeah. I feel like we did kind of cover most of that already from that one book.
Yeah, I mean, he has had. We can't go back into this at that point, but yeah, he has had an arc going on in the background, I think.
Yes, the moral stuff. I agree with that. Gen X Sen said David Saga. Enough said. Pretty cool. Hexen New said, I can't answer this fully because of just plain not remembering stuff from around this slot when I was younger. This was the part where I got them whatever order I could find them in, and that muddled with my continuity a bit. They wrote a lot, so I'm skimming this. The shift in Yeerk continuity was necessary, though, which contributed greatly to the strong run of 18 through Hork-Bajir. Counting 18 in the run for the impressions of Andalite attitudes that showed the start of the rumblings that Hork-Bajir solidified and made the Andalites a much more believable presence. I do recall when I was younger, I actually disliked the David trilogy, but I honestly don't know why. It does have its weaker books, 14, 16, and 17, but they are important in their own right. It's a very strong run of books in the series. My friend who lurks here but is too shy to post had this to say as a commentary to me. So now we're getting a nested comment from within a comment from someone else.
Oh, man.
They said, while it's a strong set of books and does a good job fixing a lot of issues of the earlier books in terms of Animorphs' actions around morphing, such as the entire lot of them demorphing in a canteen full of voluntary controllers in the Yeerk pool. Come on, that wasn't followed up, really? But it does begin the trend that you see with a lot of youth media of the late 90s. The important high-stakes stories start relying too heavily on the incompetence of the villain, when it has been demonstrated that the villain is not incompetent. If Visser 3 was playing at the level of intelligence and ruthlessness he had previously demonstrated that made him a much more terrifying villain prior to Book 8, it would have been a much stronger set of stories, especially in 19 and the David trilogy. It is still perfectly possible to thwart all of these plans by playing his hyper-specialization against him, while maintaining his previously established competence. Resorting to diminishing the villain to solve the situation actually lowers the stakes of even the higher stakes stories. I'm aware this is most likely the fault of Scholastic and its tight schedules imposed on authors. It's a shame such a thing likely hurt a good series in this manner. That is interesting. We've been focusing on the Animorphs. We did not talk about Visser 3 really in terms of his trajectory here.
Yeah, we've done a terrible job here.
Yeah, this person really saved our episode. Because
see, I was going to call them a dweeb for everything, the way that they said all that.
Yeah, but they didn't use neotenous, so it's better.
Okay.
But yes, the Visser 3, we have absolutely seen that trend take form fully. I don't know, actually, to me it still feels a little more... There are like 2 or 3 books where it was bad. And I feel like the other books almost want you to forget that he isn't a threat. As opposed to him slowly becoming non-threatening consistently. It's sort of been like, we want him to be a joke here because we want him to.
And I mean, his jokiness was almost never as bad at the beginning, but I do feel like there were a lot of points, even in early season 1, where he just kind of like was incompetent to some degree, or like was less competent than he should have been because he executed all his competent people rather than listening to them. And I also feel like there were a number of moments in the season where Yeerk's not Visser 3 were more competent than they were in the first season. Often in terms of things like they didn't demorph in the cantina and then nobody talked about it. No, instead they installed a GLEAT biofilter, so now they can't get in, kind of thing.
Right.
I think there is a downward trend, but I don't think it's very steady. I think it's, as you were saying, very back and forth.
Yeah, and we end this season on Hork-Bajir, where he's seemingly at his most competent. Mm-hmm. Although that's a prequel. So yeah, but we're thinking about it, and my guess is he gets dumber as the series goes on. But I'll see. Glittering Mushroom also agreed with that comment and echoed some of the stuff that we said. Said, I feel like Animorphs laid the bones for an amazing series / world, and it would be such a great candidate for a TV show reimagining a la Westworld, where the main beats are kept, but some of the issues, inconsistencies, sloppy ghostwriting get cleaned up. Yeah, again, just exactly what we said.
Everybody wants this, but the studios don't want to make Animorphs. They want to. They're like, we'll make Animorphs. Oh, by the way, we're just going to turn it into a regular stupid superhero thing. We don't actually want to do it. Just make fucking Animorphs. It'll be great. Everybody wants it.
Yeah, and as they also point out, the anti-war and imperialism themes will always be relevant. So. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that more later in the show, I'm sure. Zarlino Suk said, if that's season 2, I'd say season 2 is quite possibly the best season of all, and I feel like that's a common sentiment. The Hork-Bajir Chronicles is probably my favorite Animorphs universe book of all, and books 17 through 22 are all great in their own ways. If 23 were included in the season 2, it would cement it as perfect. You fucked up, man. You fucked up.
It just doesn't quite fit.
You fucked up. But echoing your thoughts a lot there. Zayush said, I owned 1 through 22 growing up, so I agree with your season divide. Someone agrees with your divide. And said, really hitting its stride here. And finally, Matthias I don't know. Farland said, this season of Animorphs just kept getting better and better. We go from the wild silliness of the Andalite toilet to non-consensual brain implant trauma to Yeerk cannibalism to instant maple and ginger oatmeal to the motherfucking Lyran homeworld and Andalite traders, ? To Cassie leaving the Animorphs and getting infested and then into the David trilogy. This is Animorphs growing the beard. To put it in blank terms. Do you know what terms those are in? It's a quiz for you. Pop culture quiz.
I don't know what terms this is.
Trek terms. This is
well, that would be why I don't know.
In next generation, there's a point where Riker grows a beard, and that's basically when the show finds itself.
Why did you think I would be able to answer that?
It was a quiz. I wanted to stump you. Is why. I wanted to make you look like a fool.
Okay.
Megamorphs 2 and Hork-Bajir Chronicles are bangers too, chock full of moral dilemmas and weird alien hijinks. I also loved getting a full chronicle-length book to explore the Hork-Bajir homeworld. It's a fun, extremely alien environment. So we're not alone. The fan base seems to be pretty much in agreement that this is an excellent run of books.
I do find it pretty funny that everyone agrees that this is an excellent run, but there are definitely discrepancies on what people think are the good or bad ones. There's people who are saying oh, there's some stinkers like 17, and other people saying 17 through 22 is the best run. And some people being like, oh, 16 is there's a couple ones in that 14 through 18. I don't know anybody said anything bad about 18, but in that earlier range that some people are including and some people are not including. But the back half, it seems universally agreed upon.
Interesting to me that none of these commenters really specifically highlight the departure, which to me seems like such a dramatic standout. And no one really, they were like, yeah, that one's great too. But I don't know. I wonder if that's a product of having read them all as kids or something.
Yeah, it easily could be, because I did not realize how much more I liked the departure until rereads as an adult. It just didn't. I don't know.
Should we put Time of Dinosaurs up to an A? I don't know.
Don't let other people confuse you.
Okay, I won't.
You can stick to your guns on this.
And Nick No Name has promised here, part 2 of the sharing. He's also got thoughts on the David trilogy, which I wanted to read right now.
Yes. Now, this has been how many weeks coming? Very many. 4 or 5?
It'll probably be 3 or 4 by the time this airs.
Okay.
He's a patient man. We've talked about him enough, for Christ's sakes. He specifically said you can decide when to read this.
We've decided.
Yeerky Boys listeners are very understanding.
They're certainly patient.
He said, I'm in agreement that this trilogy really just feels like one book. It's more a Megamorphs than a true trilogy. The cliffhangers don't make sense as act breaks, really. I think maybe between 2 and 3 is a decent act break, but the cockroach falling ending is not an act break. I think it would certainly be more interesting for David to have been a side character all along, as I had suggested, but it would be hard to juggle with the nature of these books being so focused on the core group, especially in this current section of Animorphs books where we don't get to hear from cool guys like Juan and Terry for even a single paragraph anymore. School is no longer serving the plot, it seems. That's interesting. Another thought I have about the David trilogy is that the character arcs are now changing a bit. The first handful of books were giving everyone a reason to fight, and now these books are causing the Animorphs to really do that deep introspection of why they're fighting. Nowhere is that made more clear than book 23 with Rachel, who's mad about being thought of as a warrior, but deep down knows that she loves that shit. She's exemplifying this duality of man where she cares deeply about her friends and family and wants a peaceful life, but knows that she must pay a price to keep those friends and families safe, and for her she feels there is no peace. So she carries this burden of being this smart, beautiful young woman who was at one point leading a simple life of being a teen girl, but is now also leading the life of a brave guerrilla warrior in an intergalactic fight for the future of humanity.
Again, that's Marco.
Right. At one point,
continue.
The war will end for everyone, and Rachel is just now figuring out this book that when it ends for her, her life isn't suddenly going to be all fine and normal again. She realizes she'll be Frodo at the end of Return of the King. Now, see, this is what I'm talking about, Stephen. This is how you make me understand. Where he's had this fantastic adventure and can no longer connect with other hobbits. Except for Rachel, she may not be able to connect with other people, including the Animorphs, because all of them have been shown a true desire for the war to end and to get back to a sense of normalcy, whereas she hasn't. Rachel on this read through so far has become my favorite character ahead of Tobias and Marco, both of whom I connected with as a kid, because she really wears being a broken person well. The kind of broken person I can aspire to. Being able to effectively use my depression as a weapon in the same way she uses her anger. And Tobias is the kind of broken person I actually am. Just a sad bird boy.
Is this so that's the letter there?
Yes, that's the letter.
Well, Nick,
Yes.
You, so you said some kind of upsetting things at the end here.
No, Rachel is someone to aspire to. I agree.
Do we need to do a wellness check here on Nick?
Probably. A wellness check on all Animorphs readers. Yeah, I mean, I agree with probably everything that was written there. I think I would have to say Rachel is also probably my favorite. Well, I know Marco's still my favorite, but Rachel is a close second. And I think I've said as much when we talked about her before, but I do think she is a fascinating character because she's fulfills an archetype that really doesn't exist anywhere else. Mm-hmm. I think that's what's so great about her.
I would agree with that she does fulfill that archetype. I mean, listen, like Marco's great, Tobias is great, Cassie is at this point she's great, like mostly because of like how good her book is. But yes, I really enjoy where Rachel is at this point as well. I have to wonder, you're saying, oh, well, Rachel's who I aspire to be, but Tobias is who I actually am. Do you think in the books that's why Tobias likes Rachel?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I wonder if that's a thing.
Or all this Rachel's or Tobias is pining after Rachel's. Go on.
Yeah. And you had also commented on that being interesting, the thing about the school no longer like furthering the plot, or what exactly was that line?
Yes, no longer further. Yeah, basically what you just said.
Yeah. I think I kind of see where you're coming from, because I do like the school sections a lot in these parts, but I think there is a difference where the school sections here, you don't see Chapman around school. You don't see Juan and Terry around school as much. You see a lot more of the school events are things like, and this is how my PTSD affects my day-to-day life. This is when I was fucked up in the lunchroom and threatened to murder David's family, or like, this is my at-home experience where I threw up in the bathroom at 3 a.m. And less just like, and here's what was happening at school, where you're sort of like adding in elements of plot or character. Certainly the idea that the Yeerk pool is under their school and their principal or their vice principal is a Yeerk is just not relevant to the plot at all throughout this entire section.
Yes, and I think you circled right back to us saying this season feels more mature, because I think you've hit on a big part of it, is that the first season really feels like, oh, who's the bad guy? The principal, of course. That's who kids can relate to. And kids go to school, so doesn't school suck? And now it's kind of evolved into a more serious, weighty sci-fi story. It makes me think of the cartoon Invader Zim. Bear with me. Because one of the things... I think one of like Nickelodeon's notes at one point for the producers of that show was they wanted every episode to take place in the school. They just wanted it to be all about the school, presumably because they're like, enough of this like weird alien shit where you're on another planet. Like, we want to see these kids in school because that's what kids know. And it feels like that's again, and it's also tying it back to Power Rangers. Like I said, that's what makes it feel like, oh, this is the afternoon kids show, is the classroom setting. And now it feels more like this is a story about teenagers facing real shit.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I wonder if some of that is Scholastic pushing that, and if some of that is a sort of self-censorship, like, oh, well, I'm writing a kid's book, they better be at school. And then only after the series becomes popular is it like, oh, cool, I can get away from that shit and write about animal hijinks and aliens. Is what I really wanted to do.
Yeah, I think so. All right, so a lot of great thoughts. Thanks to everybody who wrote on that Reddit or sent an email in. And if you didn't get on the show and you all still have thoughts about seasons 1 or 2 or anything in between, you can still email us, theyeerkyboys@gmail.com. It will be a while before we get to those emails, but we'll be reading them and we will get to them. I promise. And I guess that's it. I guess we've covered season 2 and what we're looking forward to and everything.
Yeah, I think there's nothing left to be said, which is unfortunate because we have a couple more podcasts before we're going to get anything to say.
Yeah, as we said, we're going to have some fun filler episodes now, but I think it'll be a nice breather. I think we're going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it, I guess. Like I said, email us if you have thoughts. Excited to continue on this journey. I'm an Animorphs fan now.
Yeah. Where was that address? I know you said it buried in the middle, but...
Oh, theyeerkyboys@gmail.com.
Ah, okay.
If you'd like, you could technically also follow us at the Yeerky Boys on Twitter. Sure. You can follow me on Blue Sky at Jonathan Estes, which is also my name on Threads. I don't know, wherever the fuck I might be. But you can really just go to my website, jonathanestes.com. You'll find all my other stuff. I do other projects, like another podcast I have called Geeks on Trial, where there's geeky debates every week, and sometimes I post YouTube videos. I have a newsletter. I got all kinds of fun stuff. So I'm plugging it all right now because it's the special episode. So you can go find that at my website, jonathanestes.com.
Yeah, you're a wild and crazy guy. I'm not a wild and crazy guy. You can, if you would like, find me on Blue Sky as well at Dog Times. That's it.
Courtesy of Nick No Name once
again. Courtesy of Nick No Name. Thank you, Nick No Name. Yep. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Tune in next time when we will be discussing some of these anime? We'll be doing the Q&A with K.A. on the Yeerky Boys.
Did you just come up with that?